oh, right, yeah. You've always got the show title covered, so.
I seem to have it always covered. Okay, now we're live. Now we're live. I seem to always
Excellent.
have it covered, but yeah, this time I do not. So we need to come up with a title. A title. Let me think about. Let me
Something
think for a second.
inspirational.
Inspirational. Um, okay. Anybody watching? Okay, somebody's watching. Somebody is
Cool.
watching. Chime in the chat room. We need a title for this episode.
Excellent idea.
We're
Ask
going
the
to
chat.
be yeah. Who knows? It may be Brian. It may be Brian. It may be. Let's see who's in there. They're not commenting. All right. Well, they're a good 20 seconds behind us anyway. We need a title. We're going to be discussing. Oh, now there's two people in the chat room. Okay, great. We need a title. We're going to be discussing uh, uh, Apple Mail, why people should be using. Hey, it's Brett. It is Brett. It's Brett Cavity. Hey, Brett, how you doing? Apple Mail and why they should be using it instead of webmail. That's
Or local based email clients, not necessarily have to be Apple Mail, but yeah, yeah.
or yes, correct.
Yes, or
Darren is
others,
correct.
indeed.
Or other uh, mail
Local
clients.
client
Yes.
thingies, yes.
Yeah. So we need to come up with something fun. I'm good.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. I thought this delay, this live stream delay is great for the chat.
excellent.
You can bump the priority of it, but mm, here's the real important question for Brett is how is my volume? How does this sound compared to Darren? New microphone, trying to find the right settings for it. I think I've dialed them in, but if there's a problem with my audio, let me know. Let me know.
That sounds pretty good to me.
For the audio show, for the actual podcast, we release through. Oh, I was going to say iTunes, but you know what I mean, through Apple Podcast. For
Yes,
for
absolutely.
that, I can fix that in post. But for the
Oh, of
live stream,
course.
just making sure
For
that it
the
sounds okay.
Audacity idea, do you use Audacity to boost various things or
I do
other
use
software?
Audacity. Yeah, no,
Ah, cool.
that's what I use. Yeah, I like Audacity. Yeah, it's
Yes, nicely.
really improved its tool set for things like leveling and evening out your audio and clearing out
Mm.
background noise and things like that. But this new mic, which you can't see, you can only see Mike, you can't see the new mic, but this new mic should
Thanks,
do a
Mike.
pretty good job of cutting out background noise, like the furnace just kicked in, and I see nothing in my levels now. With the
Excellent.
old mic, with this jobber right here, which is a fine mic, but with that mic,
Yeah.
it picked up every little. There was no noise rejection with it at
Ah,
all, and
all right.
so
Is that why you've decided to grab a new one?
yeah. Well, that was one of the main reasons. Yeah, yeah. Plus, this one allows me to change the foam covers for it. You know,
Oh,
so
nice.
yeah. This has a much better pop filter, built-in noise rejection. It's got a built-in preamp, which is nice. So it's a dynamic mic, and those are generally a little bit better for noise rejection. The process of getting this mic was fraught with error and confusion. So
Oh no.
in order to save myself a few bucks, I went with a new open box. Excuse me, from one of the big
Oh,
retailers, from
okay.
one of the big
Yeah,
online
yeah, yeah.
retailers.
What could go
So,
wrong?
but what could go wrong? Well, what went wrong is I received it and it did not work at all. Zip,
Ah,
nothing.
that's a
All
fairly big thing to go wrong.
kind of a big thing, when when I plugged it in, all I heard was
Oh
bzzz.
no.
Like, well,
Oh.
that's not good. So after much wailing and gnashing of teeth, I no, it wasn't. It actually was a really easy process. I'm not going to say who it was, but it was a really easy process. I got the return configured,
Cool.
got it sent off back to them. I got confirmation from UPS that it had been delivered, and then nothing. The replacement wasn't shipping.
Oh no.
And so I thought, well, okay, they say 5 to 7 days. I'm going to give them 5 to 7 days, and then I'll complain. And yeah, it was after the seventh day I called them, and there seemed to be a little confusion on their end as to what was going on. They had some sort of note in their order status that they had to provide special packaging. I don't need special packaging. I just need the replacement
Just need a box
microphone.
with a working
That's
phone.
ship it out to me. And
Just put it in the box.
so here's why. Because when I did the return or the exchange, I wanted to do an exchange. When I did the exchange, she said, "Well, do you want a refund or do you want a replacement?" And I said, "Well, I bought this as an open box. Allegedly, it was used and tested in your storefront because it is an online retailer that also has a storefront. So that's why they had these open box mics." And I said, allegedly, it was tested and used in there, but if I know that the replacement's going to work, send me a replacement. If it's not going to work, just give me my money back. And she said, "Well,
Oh
I'll put a
dear.
note on here. I'll put a note on here for them to test it before they ship it to you." I said, "Well,
That would be nice.
that would be nice. That'd be great. I that's wonderful customer service." And somehow that note caused oodles and oodles of confusion on their end, and they thought it needed special
Oh my
packaging and
god.
this and that and the other thing. And
Wow.
when I finally talked to the second support person, they said, "Oh yeah, okay, we'll get this sorted and sent back to
Wow.
you."
You're like a bit old-fashioned saying, oh, actually, I might be old-fashioned, but I quite would like a product that works when you open the box.
Uh, Unfortunately, being an open box, unfortunately, the replacement box wasn't as pretty or nice as the first box. It has a nice little slip cover on it that shows the product inside and all that lovely
Mm.
stuff. And I guess I should have held on to that from the first one. The first one was beautiful. Second one, kind of beat up packaging, but the mic works. So
Cool.
that's really the ultimate goal, I suppose. All right. No, no suggestions from the chat room. So let's come up with a title here. We could go.
How about what I said just earlier, just a minute earlier? Just put it
We've
in the
got
box. We could have that.
what's that? Just put it in the box.
That's it. Show title.
That how is that an appropriate show title, Darren? How?
Emails go into your inbox.
Oh, just put it in the
It's a
inbox.
tenuous link, I must admit. I must admit, it's not probably not my best work.
Well, it's not bad. It could, yeah. Gosh,
Yeah,
I spent.
it could use some work. Yes.
Hmm. I can always insert it later. We, this debate, and in discussion about the microphone, we actually lost a viewer in the process. So that's
Wow.
always fun.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Oh dear. Okay. Um, oh, okay. I know. I
Oh,
know.
you've got
We're
something.
we're gonna
Oh, okay.
look. They it would be appropriate. It would be appropriate to uh, revive this. Wasn't it? Wasn't it You've Got Mail, the movie where they had the scene in the restaurant with the? Uh,
Uh, was it that one? No, no.
oh no,
Was
that
it
was
the
when
one
Harry
with
met Sally, wasn't it?
exactly? That's Harry Met
Yeah,
Sally. So this is the other one. Oh, yes.
that's the Tom
Uh,
Hanks
uh,
one. Is You've
Tom
Got
Hanks.
Mail?
That's
Yeah.
him. Yeah, Tom Hanks. That's the one.
Now, if only I could impersonate the "You've Got Mail." You've got Apple Mail. There you go.
Oh, that's quite a good one. Yeah,
Yeah,
that works.
that'll be the title.
You've
There
got
you
Apple
go.
Mail.
Dear, dear, oh dear, oh dear. All
Excellent,
right.
excellent.
Well, with that out of the way, so I assume so. I think what we're going to do is focus primarily on Apple Mail. Yes, there are
Okay.
a bazillion other clients out there, including my favorite, but I think it makes sense to just focus on one and talk about some of the features that it offers.
Yes. Okay.
And
No
if I
worries.
recall, and this entire conversation is based upon my recollection of the fact that you use Apple Mail.
That's right. Yeah, I'm a big
Okay,
user of
good.
Apple Mail. No worries. Been using Apple Mail for absolutely ages. And a new feature just come in. The last thing I was going to mention on my notes, one of the new features um, now integrates and applies to Apple Mail um, because Apple Intelligence has come out and it's part of the mail summaries thing. So I was going to mention mail summaries as an integrated part of things that you would get as an advantage to Apple Mail rather than what you'd get with webmail because you wouldn't get the summarization type thing.
Right. Right. Yeah, excellent. And I just took note of some of the, I don't use it on a daily basis, but I took note of some of the better features I think that
Mm,
folks may want to pay attention to if they're stuck on webmail. And there we go. I think we can get started then. How about that?
excellent. Yeah.
How about that? All right.
How about
Well,
that?
we are 16 minutes in. And for those who may be confused by that, if we look at the actual live stream, I think we're like 12 minutes in. Um, so when I say we're 16 minutes in, that's 16 minutes on my audio recorder so that I know where to start editing from. And now we're 16 minutes and 25 seconds in. So very good, Mike.
Excellent.
Well, shall we get
Oh,
started, my friend?
yes, I shall go on mute so you've got the. Oh, I don't interrupt you then. Excellent. Let's go for
Go
it.
on mute. You have to go on mute. I do that. There.
Hi there.
Hello. All right.
Hello. Oh, and of course, since it's Valentine's Day, I'll have to click this button instead.
Ah, very nice. I don't think this works. If I click this, yeah, see that only gives balloons on my end. Boing.
Oh, there you go, confetti.
There you
Excellent. I
go.
can see it.
All right. I do not have, okay, I should create a hearts button, shouldn't I? Well, that's
Oh, on
just
your stream
delaying
deck.
us
Yeah,
even
absolutely.
more. That's just delaying us even more, Darren. Here we go. This is Stream Deck
Oh,
action.
you're being clever now. Apparently, you can do hand. Oh, I don't know how to do the thing with the
Yeah,
hands for
I
the.
I can't do the heart with my fingers
I
either.
can't.
That's
Oh, no, oh God, this is tricky, isn't it? It should automatically respond to that for reactions, but I have to click the button usually because I can never get the hand right.
a week ago was Groundhog Day. February 2nd was Groundhog Day.
Of course. Oh,
Uh,
yes.
for
One of my
anyone,
favorite films of all time.
it's a great film. For anyone watching the live stream, if you missed the notices I put out on social media, I put out on Blue Sky and Mastodon. I was on another channel, YouTube channel last week called the VHS Club. The VHS Club. It's
Wow.
hosted by Katie and Natalie. Uh, and what they do is every week, I think it's every week, they discuss some other 80s or 90s era movie, you know. And about a year ago, I got into a discussion with Katie about coming on to talk about Groundhog Day because
Oh, that would be great.
my office is in Woodstock where they filmed the movie.
I know.
And
I only found that out today as well. It's
did you?
amazing.
See, you
Yeah,
sent me that YouTube link. I'm like, oh, Darren,
I did.
I probably know far more than
You
anyone should
probably do.
possibly
You're an
know about
expert.
it.
I didn't realize.
Yeah. So anyway, I was on their show, and earlier in the day, we had done a walking tour of Woodstock to
Oh,
show
film
the various
locations. Oh,
film
wow.
locations.
Fabulous.
And Katie said that she was going to release that in their channel. It has not been released yet, but I also did an impromptu live from Groundhog Day, which they did put in their on their channel, and then
Excellent.
that following Wednesday, so a week ago, week ago Wednesday, I was on their show to talk about the movie Groundhog Day, and they put some of the walking tour stuff into the show, so that was fun. That was a lot of fun being on
Brilliant.
there, and fantastic host, fantastic show. The VHS Club, if you're interested in
Oh,
older
yeah.
fun
Yeah.
movies,
Oh, I love the, yeah, yeah. I love all that sort of stuff. Yeah, yeah.
definitely check it out.
Did he see his shadow? Did Punxsutawney Phil see his shadow or not?
Well, here's the deal: Woodstock Willie, that's our
Okay.
groundhog. Our
Oh, that's brilliant.
groundhog is Woodstock Willie, and
Fantastic.
Woodstock Willie did not see his shadow, so we're in for an early
Ah,
spring.
excellent news. Excellent news. Celebrations.
Celebrations, other than we just got dumped on with snow the other day, and we're supposed to get more this afternoon and more tomorrow. So, you know, grr.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it was raining earlier on.
Puxatawny Phil, however, the groundhog that the movie is based upon,
Yes.
did see a shadow, and so
Oh, all the disagreement
I guess
amongst the.
Puxatawny is in for a longer winter. There you
Ah,
go. See, I'm a fantastic time waster, Darren. We're now at 21 minutes and 20 seconds. All right, but we'll get started. Ready?
go for it.
Okay. All right. Here we go. In three, two, one. Ooh, camera's off. There we go. Let me adjust this a little bit. There we go. Okay. Here we go again. In three, two, one. It's for Mac Guys Only, episode number 445 for February 14th, 2025. You've got Apple Mail. Hey everyone, welcome back to For Mac Guys Only, a show for the Mac community where we share our thoughts and opinions on current Mac news and events. And joining me to talk mail apps for the Mac is Darren Davies. Hey Darren, how you doing?
Hey there. Nice to see you.
Thank you, thank you. And if you are going to be joining us live, I'll be keeping an eye on the chat room too. So if you have any questions or comments as we move along, be sure to drop it in the chat room and we will try to address it as we record the show. And in fact, we do have a nice comment here from Brett. Brett mentioned the mail categories, so that's something, if we did not already add that to our notes, it's something to make sure we put in the notes for the show.
Ah, yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
but he's referring, of course, to mail on iOS, not on the Mac.
Soon to appear on the Mac in 18.4, I believe.
And it's great to see Martine in the chat room too. Hey, Martine, good to see you.
Hi there.
All right, back to the show. Last episode, Darren, we shared a few must-have apps, the tools that we want on our Macs to be productive out of the gate. And one set of tools that we talked about are the communication apps that ship with every single Mac, packed right into the box. We've got mail, we've got calendar, we've got contacts, we've got reminders and notes, and probably something else that I'm forgetting. Now, of course, the question comes up, why should I use these apps? Why should I use Apple Mail, or why should I use any mail app for that matter? I mean,
Mm.
Gmail and Outlook on the web work fine, right? I mean, I'm getting mail, I'm replying to mail, my contacts are there, sort of. It works. Plus, you know, Aren't all mail
Yeah,
clients,
kind of.
aren't all mail
Aren't they all the
clients,
same?
well, even more importantly, aren't they kind of old hat? I mean, isn't the phrase
Well, yeah.
old hat, Darren? Well,
Very
I
good.
think I think the first mistake that people make, and it's a mistake that Google and Microsoft and Yahoo want you to make, is thinking that if you're using Gmail, you have to use it via gmail.com. You have to use it via the web. That's what they want you to think. These are companies that make money from advertising, and gosh, if you've ever used Yahoo Mail, you know that they are making a lot of money off of you using Yahoo for the web.
All those adverts everywhere.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. And in fact, if you do a search for why use Apple Mail, you're going to find a ton of articles out there that say things like, are you sick of Gmail? Use Apple Mail instead. Or stop using Gmail today. And then they go on to explain why you should be using Apple's Mail app instead. And the point
Yeah.
that they're missing, and I know that this is a point you wanted to make, Darren, but the point that they're missing is that Gmail and Outlook are services. They provide you an email address and they provide the servers that send and receive your email. And they also happen to provide services for managing your calendars and your contacts. And they also provide an interface via the web to interact with these services that they provide. And I guess, you could argue it's consistent. And I guess you could argue that for the most part, it's simple and it's straightforward. Now, Apple Mail is a mail client, it's a mail reader. I think I saw Apple refer to it as a mail reader, not a mail client. I think when you use the term mail client,
Oh,
it
yeah.
tends to
Yeah.
confuse people.
I
Uh,
suppose client is the old-fashioned name for.
it,
Yeah.
Definitely the old fashioned
We're old
name.
school. We're old school.
But it's a tool, and perhaps Apple's terminology of calling it a mail reader is better because it's a
Mm.
tool to read your email that may be found on any number of services, including Gmail and Outlook and Yahoo and others. And the first time you launch it, if you've not already done so, it will likely step you through signing into your email account so that you can get started sending and receiving email on your Mac. So, why would someone want to do this, Darren? Why would someone want to use a mail client? And maybe bring up what you wanted to mention too, referring to these as services versus. Um,
Well, yeah. Exactly right. I think that's one of the fundamentals to think about, like who is providing your service, and um, email is probably one of the most important services we all use, even though messaging is sort of taking over a little bit. I'm still a bit old school and I prefer emails myself, and emails have been going for 40 years now. So yeah, they're still pretty popular, the old email. But services wise, not all of the service providers are made equal.
mm,
Like you say, a lot of them do provide all three services, and so they can integrate. So, for instance, it's a very good idea to have your provider that provides you email also providing you contacts, because if your contacts are synced with a different service and your email comes down from a second service, neither of them will speak to each other, and you'll have all sorts of interesting issues if you try to access your webmail expecting your contacts to be there and they're synced with another service, and you can get very confused that way.
and when you say that,
But
you're talking about in the context of using webmail,
well, yes, indeed, yes. So yeah, if you don't get the fundamentals right of who is your service provider and what are they providing, and what is synced with what, then you can end up in difficulties when you go onto their webmail service and half the things you expect to be there are not there,
right?
and that can be rather confusing.
And that's one of
So
the
we do
advantages
have
that we'll be mentioning when it comes to talking about using a mail reader versus mail on
yeah,
the web.
because one of the main things the mail reader will do is integrate all of those services together, so you can have multiple accounts from multiple service providers for multiple email accounts. They don't have to be from the same people. And you can do the same with your contacts as well. So if you did have multiple services, say you had an Outlook account with contacts, and you also had a Gmail account with contacts, those contacts will be amalgamated by your Mac. So when you search, it searches across both, and it's transparent.
Mm-hmm.
And the same with your emails. When you have a look at all of your inboxes, that will give you great control over each account. So you can delve into the folders of each account separately, or you can treat them all together. So
Right.
there's big advantages there. So you could have several providers and services and just amalgamate them all together, which you
App,
can't do if you have to delve into each individual webmail service for each account type.
exactly. And I think that's probably one thing that sets Apple Mail and contacts and calendars and reminders apart from the way folks do things on other platforms, because Apple
Other
allows you,
platforms, yes.
they allow you to separate out your contacts and your calendars and your reminders and your mail into these different applications so that you can better manage which service you want to use for each of those types of function, as you
Mm,
rightly mentioned. And maybe we'll just go right into one of the best features of Apple Mail, and that is the ability to maintain and interact with multiple accounts all in one place. Uh, Namely, out of the box, of course, Apple's iCloud Mail it works with. It works with Exchange and Outlook Mail. It works with Google Workspace and Gmail. It works with Yahoo,
yep,
and it even works with AOL, for goodness sakes. And then, of course, it works with any other POP or IMAP mail provider that you could throw at it, really, for the
exactly.
most part.
Yeah, if you have an independent provider, you can just slot in the details there on the bit that says other. So it's quite nice when you set up a new mail account in Apple Mail. It doesn't leave you mystified. So it gives you a nice list of providers to choose from with their nice icons for each provider, even down to several for different providers. So, for instance, there's a particular thing you can click on for Outlook 365, and there's also a separate one for Outlook.com. So
Right.
both Microsoft services are covered there by clicking very easy to see icons. So when you choose to set up a new account, it's quite nice how they've laid it out so it's easy to understand what service you're setting up a new account for, and it will prompt you for exactly the correct things you would need to type in for that type of account without going through too much of the jargon of all the bits behind the scenes that Apple Mail sets up for you. It doesn't need to ask you the question because you've specifically chosen, for instance, if you click on Gmail, it'll only ask you the pertinent questions to set up that Gmail account. It won't ask you all the bits that it knows how to do itself because you've already chosen that your account will be hosted at Gmail. So they make it easy for you to set up new accounts for services. I quite like how it's all presented.
Not only do they make it easy to set up your accounts with these different services, but and I guess we should probably admit this has not always been the case. Apple Mail has not always been this easy to set up. And in fact, up until
No,
just a
no,
few short years ago, it wasn't always easy to integrate, let's say, a service like Gmail that depends upon certain security protocols like OAuth. It wasn't always as easy to set that up, but Apple has really made some fantastic leaps in terms of how easy it is to set up your account. And so when it recognizes that you are, as you said, adding a Gmail account, it knows, oh, Gmail now requires OAuth. I'm going to have to pop up this window that allows the user to
yeah,
sign into
yeah,
their account separately
That's it.
approve this interaction and then allow it to be set up and configured on the Mac,
And it
which is
nicely
great.
guides you through each step. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like the way it's guided.
And the other advantage, and I mentioned this a moment ago with the separation of these various services into different apps, is that when you add an account, like a Gmail account, you are given the choice if you want to turn on things like notes and contact syncing and calendar
Mm,
syncing,
yes.
reminders. Does reminders work with Gmail? I don't know if reminders works with
Reminders, yeah,
Gmail.
that
It,
it does. Yeah, I think that yes, yeah.
uh,
I know the Microsoft host stuff supports both reminders and notes, but you have to be a little bit careful with that one because they don't support all the features.
oh, true.
So, for instance, if you were adding a Microsoft account, I would tick the boxes for mail, contacts, and calendars because then you've got a nice grouping there of supported services that work and integrate together. Um, macOS support for those three are really good, and also because yeah, Microsoft's services are seen by the Mac as uh, are fully supported. Put it that way. The only difference there is with notes and reminders. Reminders isn't too bad, but on the notes side, there are features and things you can do within Notes that aren't supported with Microsoft's Notes system. So if you do sync with Notes, you wouldn't be able to draw and do many of the graphic things around, and that would try to sync back to Microsoft Notes, but some of the information would go missing. So often there, it's a good idea to sync your Notes service at least with iCloud instead, um, but then sync your email, calendar, and contacts with Microsoft. So they both work in conjunction. But then you get the full features of Notes hosted by iCloud, but the full features of the main services hosted by Microsoft, and they both work together, even though they're separated by two different services. So the integration is key there.
Absolutely,
But yeah,
and you're right that it kind of goes both ways too. Some of these
it
services
does.
provide features and functionality that is not supported by the Mac, and so when you enable the ability to synchronize your content with that service, you're right. Sometimes it doesn't get saved to that service in quite the format that you expect, or information that you've entered while you're within what do they call it, Google Keep, while you're within, Google's Notes application may not come back in quite the same format to your Mac. But I will say that for the most part, Apple does a great job, even if it should be some sort of interactive animated image. Sometimes it just gets sent through as a static image, and that's fine.
Oh yeah, it's quite elegant. Yeah, yeah. The conversion's fairly elegant, but you'll get the most support from Notes if you sync it with iCloud. But there's no problem with crossing the streams a little bit there because uh, you can quite happily host three of those services or three of those functions on one service, and then the other two on iCloud, and it'll all work together seamlessly.
And I do that very thing. I do maintain my contacts on one service. I maintain my calendars on well, actually the same service, but then I synchronize my notes and reminders to iCloud.
Yes, that's what
So
I do. Yeah.
that's the beauty of the way Apple handles internet accounts on your Mac and on your phone, on iOS as well, is the ability to turn on or off these services. And if you've ever had the situation where you had to merge contacts from one service to another or bring contacts in
Oh
from one
yes.
service to another, the Contacts app on the Mac is the perfect way to do it, as is calendars. To migrate calendars from
Yes.
one service to another is super easy on the
Moving
Mac.
data from services is, yeah, great. Doing it through something like the Contacts app. Yeah,
And that's
that's the easiest
because
way.
it's the easiest way, and that's because of this ability to add multiple accounts. We talked about how easy it is to add one account, but the ability to add multiple accounts,
Mm,
immediately the advantage of that is not having multiple browser tabs open, each on a different Gmail account, or one on Outlook and
yes.
one on Gmail and one on Google Workspace and one on iCloud.
Well, that's it. If they're all on separate services, they're not going to talk to each other at the back end. You won't be able to migrate data anywhere near as easily from one service to another if you try to do it
Right.
via the web. You'd be into all sorts of problems going back and forth between tabs and trying to work out what on earth do I do.
Well, what do I do? But when I have encountered clients and friends who, are trying to migrate from one internet service to another, the
Mm,
very first thing that they always ask about are contacts. How do I get my
yes,
contacts from one to the other? And yes, you can export them. Yes, you can import them. But when you have both accounts added to your Mac in internet accounts and you have contacts checked for both of them, you can literally drag and drop from one to the other. It's
indeed,
that
yeah.
easy and it's that beautiful to be able to do that.
It is also very fast. And funnily enough, with Apple Mail itself, you can do the same sort of thing with Apple Mail, of course, having multiple accounts on services and copy your mail archives and folders between one service and another. One of the beauties of Apple Mail is it's very very fast to do that. So when you're say you're downloading, the other day I helped someone set up a new account and it had they'd never deleted an email it looked like actually so it had to go through rather a lot of emails I should say it did sit there for a couple of minutes trying to discover what it had to copy, but once it started the process it was incredibly quick. It was bringing down thousands of messages uh, every few seconds. It went up by a few hundred messages. It was like, well, yes, this is really nice. Copying between services is very very quick. So that's another advantage of doing it through a mail reader.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be Apple Mail, by the way. This is something
No,
that
no, exactly. Yeah.
I've done for clients before, and I keep a different mail client on my Mac for this very purpose. So when
Well,
someone
for
needs help
migrating, yeah.
migrating mail from one service to another, I will fire up this other mail client, which is actually now a discontinued mail client. It's a mail client, a mail reader called Postbox, which is
Oh,
a
not heard of that one.
fork of Mozilla Thunderbird, a commercial fork of Mozilla
Okay,
Thunderbird.
okay.
And it was great up until they got bought out last year and the project was shut down. But Postbox as an app continues to work, and I keep that on my Mac solely for the purpose of helping clients migrate from one mail account to another. I'll
Mm,
I'll add both of their accounts to it. I'll literally, as you said, drag and drop from one to the other, watch that mail fly through, and when you're all done, you just remove the accounts and you're ready to go. It's great
yeah,
for doing
yeah.
that. Um,
This is
there
one of the
is
other benefits. Oh, sorry.
oh
I was just going to mention. I was just going to mention that the because Apple Mail knows the type of account that is set up, say a Gmail account, there are differences to how Gmail approaches storing mail. So, for instance,
hmm,
what you see on the Gmail website, you see folders, but at the under the bonnet, they're stored as flags. So Apple
labels,
Mail
yeah,
knows that labels and flags
yeah.
exactly. So Apple Mail knows this already. So when you are moving data from like say a Gmail account to a Microsoft hosted account, for instance, it will know both services how they work. So it will convert your labels into folder
The
names, and
folders,
it will do a proper
yeah.
IMAP translation. It does all this stuff behind the scenes you don't need to know about, and it makes the transition really easy. Normally you'd have to do all sorts of fun and games if you didn't have Apple Mail be able to do that for you.
There's a lot of power to the concept of labels. I get it. I
Oh yes, yeah.
understand why Gmail does
I've
it
never got
that
on with
way.
them, but yeah, yeah, it can be
Uh,
really good because you can attach multiple labels to the same thing. So because normally if you just put something in a folder, it's just in that folder, whereas with a label you can add multiple labels to the same thing. So you only store data once, but it's referenced in lots of different things that look like folders and behave like folders. So it's very powerful. Although I'm still old school and I got a bit stuck in my ways with folders.
Oh, yes, I still refer to them as folders, even though I fully realize that any one message may be in multiple folders in my mail client. But you can mimic that functionality even if you're not using Gmail or even if you're not using a service that thinks of organizing your mail in the same way that Gmail does. You can mimic that functionality with smart folders and
Oh
with
yeah, smart folders are amazing.
tags in Apple Mail.
And
Yeah,
tagging, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
yeah. One last thing about multiple accounts in one place, and this is not functionality that I take advantage of, but I do know a number of folks who do and appreciate this functionality, and that's the one inbox, the unified inbox, where
Yes.
if you have multiple accounts added to your internet accounts on your Mac or your phone, you can view you can view what's called a unified inbox or one inbox in Apple Mail, where the messages from all your different services appear in
Yeah.
one list, which can be great, especially if I have a lot of
Yeah.
personal
Yeah. I
accounts.
love it.
The reason I don't, and maybe you can give an argument for why you do use it, Darren, but the reason I don't do it is because I need that mental separation of this is my work or business email, this is my personal email, this is this is that. I have way more email accounts than anybody should have.
Well, that's the thing. That's probably why I like it actually, because I sort of limit myself. I only have two accounts, which are joined at the hip with uh, an overarching inbox to combine the two. I do like them combined, um, and I'm not so much of a huge fan of the new system that was mentioned earlier on. I've forgotten the name now, whereby messages are categorized. Oh, categories. There we are. So yes, so that's on the phone at the moment, and not on the Mac for Apple Mail, but it's coming very soon for
Hmm.
Apple Mail uh, to an update near you. Probably in 18.4. We're on 18. No, no. Oh, wrong one. 14. What are we on?
Eight, iOS 18
We
and
are
Mac OS
Oh,
15. Yeah.
15.4. Yes. So
Yeah.
the next version of macOS 15.4 should include that feature for Apple Mail to mirror what's on the phone at the moment. It's entirely optional. You can turn it off if you don't get on with it, but it is a way of separating out types or categories of mail, um, so that you don't get overwhelmed with like a huge inbox with everything in it. You can separate things out, or it separates out things for you, which can be quite nice. Um, but I haven't quite got on with it on the phone as well as I when I tried it. So I do like them all amalgamated together, all in one big long list. It makes sure that I don't miss anything.
I do too, and it is actually one of the first features I will turn off if I'm using Gmail on the web. It's wonderful. I love the idea of it, but something will be missed. If I let Gmail automatically categorize things like that, or Apple Intelligence
Yes,
categorize things like
yes.
that, I know something will be missed, and I miss enough as it is already. So to shuttle something off where it's out of sight, out of mind is not something that works well for me. But
Yeah,
I
it doesn't
definitely
sit right
appreciate,
with me either, actually.
yeah, I definitely appreciate the feature and why some people might like it.
Yeah. Well,
So we kind of covered the
yeah. Sorry, carry
basics.
on.
We kind of covered the basics here. Setting up email accounts on your Mac, the ability to turn on or off features like contacts and calendars and mail. And yes, we understand that contacts and calendars and reminders are not mail, and we're talking about mail today, but it is part of your internet account typically, the account that
Yeah.
provides your email service to you typically also provides, as I mentioned, contact calendars, reminders, notes, things like that. So, knowing where to set that up, how to set that up, it's on, if you don't know, it's under settings and then internet accounts. That's where you will find that. And very often, Apple will let you set up something like mail under the mail setting, but it can all be managed under internet accounts in your Mac's
On the Mac,
settings.
yes, because
Yes,
on the phone it's in a slightly different, more awkward place to get to, unfortunately.
of course it is.
Of
Um,
course it is.
but maybe we could go through some of the other top reasons to switch to a mail
Mm,
client on your Mac. And again, the obvious choice for our discussion today is Apple Mail because that ships with every Mac. But I don't want
yeah.
anyone to discount the fact that there are myriad other awesome mail clients out there,
Oh yes, there's some
including,
very good mail clients available, third-party ones. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, my favorite, Mozilla Thunderbird.
Thunderbird,
I,
yeah,
I think it's great, and there are certainly some features uh, of Apple Mail that cannot be found in Thunderbird, but for the most part, it
yeah,
does the job
yeah,
for me, including being able to interact with my contacts that I maintain in the Contacts app on my Mac. So
yeah.
I'm going to throw it over to you, Darren. What is one of your top reasons to use Apple Mail on the Mac, feature-wise? What sets it apart from, let's say, interacting with your mail on the web?
I think one of the main ones is uh, specifically really for laptop users or mobile users. So um, by default, because it's there and already it's set up, it's already there. You don't have to configure anything. By default, it will work in offline access mode. So you can get webmail services to work in that way to go offline into an offline mode and then come back online and so on. But it's a bit fiddly, it's a bit janky, it's not entirely, it's not a great experience. Um, so Apple Mail already knows if you're offline or if you're online. And it automatically switches into the right mode for the right thing that you're doing. So if you take your laptop away and you're not connected to anything, you can carry on replying to messages and doing all of the things you want to do, sending new messages and so on, whilst you're not connected. And the Mac will know, and Apple Mail will know that it's in offline mode, and it will just store all those up, ready to go when you're next connected. So when you next come back home, say for instance, you connect to your network, Apple Mail will realize, oh, I'm connected now, no problem, and it will batch up all those changes you made whilst you're offline and sync them back to the server, and it will do all the things that you did offline. Whereas achieving the same thing with webmail services is often not pretty, shall we say, and sometimes it's not even supported at all. So just the ability to, without thinking about it, being able to be able to work in an offline mode and then instantly switch to an online mode and back again, without you having to do anything. It's just a built-in feature there, and it will just do it all for you. Whereas you have to really think what you're doing if you try to do the same thing with a webmail service.
And in truth, this really harkens back to the earliest days of email, right? When you composed
It's
a message, the typical path for that message to take is to go to your mail client's outbox. The mail client will establish communication with the mail server. It will then take the message from your outbox, send it to the server for processing, and ultimately delivery. That's an oversimplification, but that's the gist of it.
yeah,
And in the old days, we didn't necessarily call it offline mode, although Thunderbird does have a very similar mode, as do most mail clients that don't interact directly with your service via the web. And if you remember, I mentioned Biscuit last episode as an essential app. We've talked
yeah,
about MailPlane before. Those are apps that run on your Mac, but they allow you to interact with your email, and in this case Gmail, by directly communicating with Google's Gmail web servers, or web interface, I should say. in that case, you can't really use it in an offline mode. It does depend upon that ability to communicate directly with Google servers in order to operate properly.
Mm.
Whereas a traditional mail client, Apple Mail, Thunderbird, etc., can work in an offline mode. It does
Yeah,
not
yeah,
have to be online. You can compose a message, it will go into the outbox, and it will wait there until it
that's
can
right.
establish communication with the mail server and then ultimately finish the job that you told it to do. Send this
Whilst
message to
you're offline,
Darren.
exactly. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So, yeah,
But
that's absolutely a fantastic feature of a mail client that you're not going to get with webmail, because if you do not have connectivity where you're at, or the connectivity is maybe a little sketchy and you really don't want to establish
oh, that
communication with that Wi-Fi access point while you're out and about, you
a
can.
slightly dodgy connection. That's it.
Slightly dodgy connections, you can compose your messages, you can
uh,
be productive. In many cases, the email that's in your inbox is also offline. It's stored locally on
mm,
your Mac so that
yeah,
you can
yeah.
interact with it and reply to it and things like that. That is a setting within Mail. You do have to tell it to do that, but it is something you can do so that you can work offline, as you said. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah, exactly.
fantastic feature of a Mail client that
You
you just
may not
can't
want to
do.
spend the money for an expensive connection whilst you're on a plane, for instance. You don't need an active internet connection to do stuff on the internet. And I quite like the way that Apple Mail especially approaches it, because the way it does it is seamless, because it will automatically detect what it is able to do or not able to do. If there is no valid connection, as you say, it will put it in the outbox ready to go next time. If there is, it will send it straight away. So it will know what to do automatically without you having to configure anything. So it makes it a seamless experience.
In a worst case scenario, you might get a message that you're offline. That's it. That may
Maybe,
happen,
yeah, yeah.
but you're right. It allows you to interact and work with your mail, and then it will complete the process when it's back online again. When you mentioned mobile, and iOS and iPad, I really thought you were going down a different path. Because one of the first things that I wrote down as an advantage of Apple Mail specifically, and using Apple Mail on your phone or your iPad, is continuity. The ability to start
Oh,
writing an
yes,
email on your phone and then finish it on your Mac, or to start writing it on your Mac and finish it on your iPad. That
absolutely.
is an
That's one of the
amazing
things I've got
feature.
written down.
There you go. And so now, as a regular Apple Mail user, is that something that you do frequently?
It is, yeah. I use handoff and continuity quite frequently. And as you say, the devices detect this for you. So it's a fabulous feature. So as you start writing an email on your Mac, but you don't finish it, and you then wander off to use your iPad instead, you can use continuity to say, "Oh, let's carry on with the message that I was writing whilst I was on my Mac," and it'll hand over nicely from one device to another. So yeah, it's how the clients can integrate with each other and sort of seamlessly transition between devices is one of the key features there,
The alternative way of doing that, of
which you are not
course,
going to get with a web client. You can't do that with a web client. They're not detected, and you can't do the
no.
continuity bit, at least. No.
You can't do the continuity, but what I was just going to say is the alternative to that would be a little bit more traditional way of
Oh yes, if
starting a
if you
message
think about, yeah,
and
because
then
it's on the
finishing it
server,
later.
exactly. Yeah, you can't. The concept is the same, but the approach to it is different. But you have to use the same webmail service on another device to continue where you left off.
Well, what I was going to say though, Darren, is that the more traditional way of doing that would be to save the message as a draft. So if you are in the process of
Oh,
composing a
actually,
message and you want to
yes,
complete that message on another device later, the
yeah,
more traditional way to do that would be to save as draft it goes
Yeah.
into the drafts folder of your account, and then on your other device, you open up that draft message
Open
and
the draft and carry
continue
on. Yes,
writing it.
yes.
That would be the more
But that
traditional way to do it. Something
the
like
only problem with that
handoff
is it
or
requires
continuity
effort,
is
unfortunately.
a great way to do it in a Mac centric way, or
Yes,
I should say
yes.
an Apple centric way, is
Yeah,
to
it's an
use
ecosystem thing,
handoff.
isn't it? Yeah, yeah. It is an ecosystem thing. Yeah, the only thing I would say about the draft folder, that is a traditional way of doing it, definitely. But it does require you to think about what you're doing, and it requires effort. Whereas the handoff side of things is automatically detected between devices, and what you open on one device and close on another. So it's a bit more seamless and a bit more modern. But yes, you are completely right.
I'm just sending you a
Oh,
message
oh,
here.
someone sent me an email. Hold on. Oh, that was eBay. Sorry, I thought that was you.
No, no, I'm sending you a message through here.
Oh, I
Um,
see. Yes.
okay, so um, yeah, there's too much of that going on. All right. Um, so yeah, continuity handoff, a fantastic feature of Apple Mail and very specific to the Apple ecosystem. The other thing that kind of ties into that, from my perspective anyway, is the ability to mark up attachments in Mail on the
Oh,
Mac.
yeah,
I just think
absolutely.
this
Yeah.
is a phenomenal feature. The ability when you are writing a message and you've added an image or a PDF document, you can, just like in Preview, use the markup tools to write or draw on that attachment. You can rotate it, you can crop it, you can add shapes, you can add your signature to it. There's all kinds of wonderful things you can do with attachments that you might be used to doing in Preview, which we have discussed here on the show fairly frequently, but this ability is right there built into the mail client so that you can add comments to an attachment before you click send.
Yeah, that's really really useful. Say you're sending an image or a screen grab and you want to circle it. It's very nice functionality built into Apple Mail that when you drag that image into Apple Mail to send away, you can mark that up, the image up, um, without having to prepare the image first. So you're dragging the image in, you can do markup in line with the message, click send, and you don't need to prepare the image with the markup before you drag it into the email. You can do it there and then.
Yep. And it can even become part of a complete workflow. If someone sends you a form, a PDF form that you need to sign, you can receive that email, get the attachment, mark up that attachment, add your signature to it, and then send it right
Yeah,
back to them again without needing to save the attachment or to reattach it when you send your reply.
that's right. Yeah, you can mark it up in line.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
traditionally, you would save the image somewhere on your computer, and then you'd open it up, then you'd mark it up, then you'd save it again, then you'd reattach it to another attached email thread reply, and so on. But this way, you can just click one button, add your signature, click send, and you've done it all in line in one fell swoop, rather than all the traditional actions that you would normally have to do.
Now, along the lines of attachments, Darren, there's something that you brought up. I think perhaps it was even last episode when we were talking about these communication apps, but that is Apple Mail's mail drop feature. I believe you use that fairly frequently with your clients, don't you? Where when you want to send a large attachment, it
Oh yes,
prompts
yes,
you to upload it to iCloud and then send a link
that's
to the
right.
person
Yeah,
instead.
yeah. It's nice the way it's again. It's nice how it's presented to the person doing a large. I mean, normally you wouldn't want to send something particularly large in an email,
Right.
because well, emails were never really designed to take large 8-bit data and send it to people. It's never been designed to do that. Um, so yeah, the idea is Apple Mail will automatically discover if you're trying to send something that it thinks is you know quite big and would benefit from being sent a different way. And as you say, all it does is automatically add it to your iCloud and change it to a link instead. But it does it behind the scenes pretty much automatically for you. You just say, yes, I want to use this service, and it does the rest for you. And then the other person, rather than receiving a large clump of data encoded within their email, which can be problematic, especially if they're on the road, then they receive a link instead, which links directly to that data that's on your iCloud service. But it's all handled nicely behind the scenes so that you don't have to do too much in the way of effort to get that service to work for you. Is really nicely presented to someone who wants to send a fair old chunk of data to someone else via email, but without using the traditional, oh, let's encode your movie as 7-bit data and it'll take half a day to send it.
I believe the term you used a couple moments ago, Darren, is the actual technical term. You referred to it as a clump of data. I think that's the technical term, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Well known as the technical.
And if you are not being offered the ability to send a link for a large attachment, for example, you may want to check your mail settings. It is under
Yes,
mail settings accounts, and then under account information, there is a checkbox to either select or deselect send large attachments with mail drop. So if
indeed.
you're not seeing the prompt to upload this ginormous attachment that you want to send to somebody as a link instead, check to see if you have that turned on or not.
Perfect.
Yeah. Uh, you know, I guess while we're talking about attachments, we should probably also mention the deep integration with photos and maps and calendar and reminders and other native apps on your Mac and iOS devices. I know sending photos, the functionality of sending a photo to somebody is a fairly common practice, but there's
Mm.
also things like Mail's ability to recognize dates and other
Yes,
information from messages.
I believe they're called data detectors,
Yeah,
and that was added to macOS quite a few versions ago,
quite a few.
and it works really well. So it will detect the type of data in the message that's being sent, so that you often see a downward arrow next to the data if it's been detected as something you can make use of. And then when you click on that downward arrow, you have a nice little list of things you can achieve with that detected data. So you can automatically add information from your email into a calendar event and so on, because of the detected data that is just picked up from that email. But it's quite nice, especially things like names and addresses added to your contacts list. They're nicely presented, so it can detect the whole of the address and add that as an item to an existing contact, for instance. All this nice integration. So the integration side is really stellar with these data detectors that are built into the operating system.
Photo integration is nice. I like the ability to bring photos directly in from the Photos app into your mail client. I'm not a big fan of how they appear within the message. I would like there to I would like the ability to bring in a photo and just say make this an attachment versus fill up the body of the message with all these photos. But there are really nice templates built into mail so that you can create these beautiful
Yeah,
cards
yeah.
and literally
Like
fill the
a Valentine's
places.
card, for instance.
A Valentine's card, for instance. Hey, it's February 14th. Uh, you can bring in these templates and then fill the little spaces within the template and then send this beautiful card off to somebody. And I just think
Mm.
that's a wonderful feature of Apple Mail that you don't really see in other mail clients.
That's right. Professionally designed templates. I mean, you can even make use of that in say, for instance, a mail merge. You could use
Mm.
one of these templates in a mail merge, although it's quite old-fashioned nowadays to actually push mail merges out. People usually use a third-party service, but this lets you, maybe you only want to send out a mail merge to a group, because when you have a group of people defined in your contacts list, you can just type the group name in and it will automatically mail merge to those people. And if you did that as a mail merge based on one of the professionally designed templates in there, you can send that to your small group of people with just a couple of clicks. And so you've got a professionally designed template used to send a nice email to your group, and the handling of who it goes to with the group in your contacts app is all integrated with the Apple Mail software to do that task. So yeah, it's I think it works really well. So yeah, mail merge. I've not done that for a while.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned groups because that's on my list as well. If
Oh,
you
excellent.
are using the Contacts app, you can create groups of contacts within there. Now, you made a very, very good point, and I think it's important to mention this, that if you are going to send mail to groups, you do want to try to limit the number of people within that group, if at all possible. If it's going to be an extremely large group, and I would say, what, 50 to 100 people, you are
Mm.
probably much, much better off using a mail service, something
Yes,
like a MailChimp or a Constant Contact or,
yes,
any
yes,
of
yes.
the myriad mail services out there because it's much less likely that your message is going to be flagged as spam. Whereas if you are sending to a group,
That's it.
one, please be sure to use BCC. Don't just put this entire group into your to
Yes.
field. Use BCC, but also, yeah, be careful when you're sending it to groups. If it's a small group of friends and family and things like that, you should be okay. But that's the main reason it's kind of fallen out of favor is because of the more stringent spam controls that we're
Mm.
finding in accounts from everybody, including Gmail and Outlook and Exchange and what have you, and iCloud Mail, for that matter.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
There's a rather neat feature of Apple Mail. If you have composed a message and you've sent it, you can actually recall that message with an undo send, the undo send
Yes.
feature. Now there is a
Time
delay.
limited.
Yep, you
Yes, there
have
we
to
are.
set a
Time. Yeah,
delay. Yep, and that's under. I just looked it up here. By default, it is 10 seconds, I believe.
yeah.
But you can
That's fair.
change the amount of time. Yeah, actually, 10 seconds is fair. I mean, that's if you're going to have email sending regret, it better happen within 10 seconds.
Yeah. Hopefully you realize it fairly quickly.
But it's under mail settings and then composing. There is a send delay pop up, and then you can choose an option in there. But 10 seconds is the default. But that's a neat feature. Once you've sent
Yeah.
a message, you can click undo send and recall that message. So it's basically a buffer built into Apple Mail. It's what we talked about earlier with the outbox and communicating with the mail server and all that. It's basically a 10-second buffer. Think of it as when they do live sports and they do other live events and there's that little 30-second delay so that they can
Yeah.
beep someone out who's swearing like a sailor in the live
That's
the
it.
live
Yeah, you
feed.
got to be careful with us English people as well with that, because it
You
can
got to
be
be
a bit
careful.
sweary.
Yes,
Although
but
I'm on my best behavior.
that's effectively what undo send is. It's a little buffer because once it has left your mail server and it is en route to
There's
the
no going
recipient,
back.
there's no going back. I have received messages from business acquaintances, and then minutes later I'll get a message. So and so would like to recall that message. Well, too late
Oops,
now.
too late. Too
It,
late.
you, it's hit my inbox. Once it hits the inbox, all
That's it.
bets
All
are
bets
off
are
there,
off.
my friend. I need to do a mind
uh,
wipe. I need to have the doctor come in and do a little mind wipe on me so I forget what happened. But Anyway,
You have to wipe everyone else's mind. That's the thing.
exactly, exactly. So undo send is kind of a neat feature, and I like that. But there are other sending features that are pretty cool, and some of the ones that I mentioned here is the ability to effectively press snooze on a message. There's a
Oh,
remind me
yes.
feature, and you can use this feature to defer an email for later. So you get something in your inbox, you know you have to take action on it, but you can't take action on it right now. You can
Mm,
use Remind Me to set a future date and time when you want to receive this message. You're not
yes.
actually receiving it a second time. It's just Apple Mail saying, hey,
So it's hiding it.
remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, remember when you told me that you wanted to see this message again? Here you
That's it.
go.
Puts it
And
front and center. Yeah.
exactly. It puts it front and center. And I think that that's a wonderful feature. And honestly, the way I do that in Thunderbird is I use the star feature. In Apple Mail, it's the flag feature. But I'll star messages and then I'll go to my starred messages folder and I'll be able to work through them. But that's rather inefficient versus something that is of a certain urgency and I need to take action on it to be able to say, remind me of this email at this time. That's a great feature of Apple Mail.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
There's also a follow-up feature. So this all kind of falls in the same realm, undo, send later. Oh, send later. I didn't mention send later.
Send later. It was.
You
It's
can
sort of related
compose a
to your
message
last
and
point. Yeah.
tell it when you want to send it. You want to send this message. You're composing it at 2 in the morning, but you don't want people to see that you composed it at 2 in the morning. So you say send this message at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
But so you've got send later, you've got undo send, you've got remind me, but there's also a follow up feature. Now, admittedly, a lot of these features you'll find in webmail services like Gmail. Gmail
Mm,
has this
yeah. Yeah.
feature to remind you to follow up on something later. It gets kind of annoying, quite frankly. If I'm in the webmail, I know that message is there. I don't need you to tell me. But with Apple Mail, the way it works is by default, if you have sent a message to somebody and you have not received a response in 3 days, I believe it is, then
Oh,
that sent
it'll
mail,
notice it needs a follow up. Yeah.
it automatically floats to the top of your inbox to remind
Needs
you to
attention.
follow up with
Yeah.
it. So that is
Fabulous.
really kind of a nice feature as well. I don't
I
know if
think
we
those
need
features are
to.
going to get better as the Apple Intelligence features come down the line. I think those particular type of things are going to get better as well, so it can automatically figure out if something needs attention or something needs to go straight to the front of your queue to have a look at.
Yeah, I would find that very useful. Not so useful that I'm ready to switch mail clients yet, but I do like that feature a lot. There's also another feature that applies to most types of email accounts, but I took note that it does not apply to Exchange. So if you're using Microsoft Exchange, you cannot use this feature, but it is the ability to redirect an email. If you let Apple's example is if you receive a message by mistake. So someone sends a message to you, it wasn't meant for you, it was really meant for Susie. Well, you can actually select the message in Apple Mail and choose redirect. And the nice thing about it is the address of the original sender is what's shown to the recipient.
Oh, that's good. That's much better than forwarding it on. And yeah,
Way better than forwarding. And that I like that as a neat
that's
little
nice.
feature of
That's a
Apple
good.
Mail
That's
that,
clever. I like that.
yeah. We talked about rules earlier. Brett mentioned
Oh,
in the chat
yes.
room mail categories. That's on iOS right now. It's also in Gmail and many other services where things are automatically redirected as promotional email or, shopping emails or what have you.
Yeah.
But I imagine that as a regular user of Apple Mail, you probably use rules, do you not?
I do in a way. If you're, for instance, using rules to cut down on spam, if you get repeated spam from particular domains, or say, for instance, there's a problematic domain that is sending you stuff all the time and you can't shut them up, you you can pop in there and very easily create rules. The rules engine is really nice. You can layer up um, the rules together, so it has to uh, satisfy several criteria before it can be ruled to do an action, and the action could be stick it in the bin, or the action could be flag it, or automatically move it to a folder. All sorts of things you can do. Um, Although there is a slight problem with that, is because well, it will rules that you set up on Apple Mail will only work on that device you set that up in Apple Mail for.
Yeah.
So you have to be a bit selective there. So what I also tend to do is I usually start off with a rule on Apple Mail, for instance, if I need one, and then I'll migrate that using the same logic into my web the web uh, 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 the website for the provider for my mail service. I'll go onto their rule system and I'll set it there, because then I've figured out what the rule should be, and then I can recreate that rule on the web service. So then it applies to all the devices that I collect my mail from. So then that follows me on the phone and the iPad as well. So you do have to be, um, you do have to know where you've applied the rule. So if you only apply the rule locally, it will only process locally. So you have to then say, oh, do I want this rule applied a bit more widely? In which case, I'll use the same logic of that rule, but I'll apply it on the web service instead for my provider. But yeah, I've used it quite extensively. Yeah, especially for the old spam side of things.
That, and we'll talk about Apple Mail spam capabilities in a little bit, because I think
Mm,
you just raised a really, really good point in that if you are going to set up something like rules, it may be much better to do so on the provider side versus in Apple Mail.
on the web
If,
server, yeah.
yeah, if your provider, and we'll just pick on Gmail here, if your provider gives you the capability to set up rules and move messages or take action on a message, I guess is probably the better way to say it. Take action on a message and move it to another folder or star it or, automatically reply to it or what have you. Those types of rules are probably best set up on their end. Uh,
Yeah.
for the very reason you mentioned, Darren, and that is you want this rule to apply no matter where you are, not just on the device that you set it up on. So, yeah, that's a great point. And I'll just go ahead and tie that into the spam controls right now, too, because I've
Yeah.
never felt that Apple Mail spam control feature was all that great. And the good news is it doesn't have to be, because these days services like Outlook and Gmail and Google Workspace and even Yahoo and AOL, they all have the ability to
Even
go through your
AOL.
inbox and look for spam, right? And they will move it to a spam folder. Now, when you have set up Gmail in the Mail app on your Mac, the great thing is you can peruse that spam folder anytime you want to. All the folders, all the labels from your Gmail account appear as folders within Apple Mail. So it's very easy to check that spam folder and make sure that it really is spam and not something that inadvertently got caught in there. And
Yes.
I think these days, anyway, letting the provider manage the spam filtration is perhaps the better way to
It's the
go.
best approach. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't generally enable the spam features in Apple Mail. They might be on, but I don't allow it to take action. So every once in a while, I'll see one of those, what is it, kind of golden yellow messages that, something that Apple Mail thinks is spam.
Yeah.
And often it is, often it's not. It's the ability to detect what is or isn't. It takes a lot of training. That's what we used to have to do,
Mm.
15 plus years ago, was train our mail clients what is spam and what's not spam. Now the providers do a much better job of it than we as
Yeah.
humans could ever do. So just let your provider do it if they have excellent
Let your
spam
provider do
controls.
it. Yeah.
And if they don't, you might want to investigate a third party spam service like
Or
Spamsieve
change provider.
or change provider. Yeah, that's a very good point. It's a difficult thing to do when you are dependent upon the at
Yeah.
gmail.com or at yahoo.com or what have you email address, and
Yeah.
that's what everybody has. But when you have your own domain, that's a great way to tackle the problem. Your provider isn't catching spam like they should, move to another provider, which is a good
Yeah.
argument to get a personal domain for that matter.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah, you have much more control. Although it's more work, of course, because you have to manage your own domain. But apart from that, it gives you the ultimate power, as it were.
The ultimate power.
Ultimate power.
I stumbled across a feature of Apple Mail today that I did not know existed because I was playing around with the views. Now, I typically like the
Oh yes.
traditional view of a row of several rows of your messages, all nice small text so you can see everything all in once. I don't like that card view that's become very popular in mail clients these days. I like to see just a kind of a traditional inbox view with various columns of, this message was sent or received on this date, sent by this person. Here's the subject line. Here's the size of the message, and just going down the screen. I don't even enable the preview window in most mail clients. I want to double click a
Oh
message
yes.
to see the message.
Uh, I love the preview window.
Yeah, well, and it's fine.
It's
The
each to their own, exactly. I mean, there's so many possibilities under that view menu for how you want your email reader, as it's called now, to present mail to you. You can choose. Whereas with webmail, this is another good example. The webmail service presents the mail to you in the way it mostly wants to present it to you, and you don't have much in the way of customizable view options. Whereas in Apple Mail, especially, and I'm sure with Thunderbird too, you have a huge number of view options that you can customize and configure your email software to look and behave exactly as you want it to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just mention very briefly the reason I got out of the habit of having the preview window on, and this really is not the case any longer. Any decent mail reader, it's so hard to not say mail client. Any
Mail
decent
client.
mail reader will not display images by default.
Yeah, security. I'm sure I knew where you were going with that one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So the preview window got turned off on my mail clients years ago because I didn't want those little pixels telling people that I
Of
opened their
course. Yes,
message,
yes,
right?
indeed.
So I turned off the preview window if I know it's or I recognize the sender and I know it's a relatively safe message, I'll go ahead and open it up. But typically I have that off. Now, mail clients these days, they block images by
They're,
default. You
they're
can
much better at blocking. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
you
So
can turn it off,
yeah
you know,
the
but
security issue that was a big thing back in the day is less of a big thing now. But yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, um, uh, probably only 10 years ago, 15 years ago or something, you would say, oh, it'd be a much better idea to not display this preview window all the time. Whereas
right,
now that issue has
kind of
not gone
moot.
away as such, but
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, kind of. It's a pet hate of mine when I see an email client configured that you have to double click on a message to read it. It's like, oh no, really? Seriously? Do I have to do this? So much effort.
well, here's the good thing. If I do want the preview window, I just hover my mouse over that little bar at the bottom and drag it
You
up, and there you
tick it.
go.
Yeah.
But here's what I was working towards in my long-winded way that I want to do. As I was playing around trying to get Apple Mail back to the default view, which is where you have the folders and accounts, and then the card view, and then the preview off to the right. In playing around with that, I discovered a feature that I did not know exists, but I'm glad it's there because I do have this feature in Thunderbird, and that is the favorites bar. So if
Oh,
you mark a mailbox or a folder, Apple calls them mailboxes, but we'll call them folders for consistency's sake. If you
yeah.
mark a mailbox as a favorite, it will show up in the favorites bar, but you have to
Mm,
turn on the favorites bar. And that's under the view menu and it's show favorites bar. And when you show that, you'll see various folders that you have marked as favorites listed in that bar. So you can quickly hop to that folder whenever you want
yeah,
to.
yeah, yeah,
The other thing it'll do is allow you to turn on or off the sidebar with a single click, which I think is a really nice feature as well.
yeah,
But Favorites Bar is a neat feature of Apple Mail that I stumbled upon today. Didn't realize it was there, but it's incredibly helpful to know that it is.
yeah, yeah. Oh, one of the other things I was going to mention, there's a couple I have on my list that we've not delved into
Excellent.
in yet. Yeah, so it's the thinking about the whole Apple ecosystem itself. So again, it's part of the integration side of things, but specifically with Siri, if you're a big fan of Siri, and your Apple Watch. Um, so one of the integrations, because of the being part of the Apple ecosystem, software wise, is that it integrates with all your other devices as well. So you'll get nice indicators on your Apple Watch that you've got a new email message, particularly.
Mm. Hmm.
Those sort of integrations won't be available for if you use webmail services. They just won't know that your other devices in the ecosystem, because they're not aware of the ecosystem you're in and what you're using. They won't be able to present your information on other devices. Whereas it's nicely integrated with when you start to use your mail in Apple Mail, for instance, it'll automatically integrate with your watch and with Siri. So and with advanced searching as well. So when you do some advanced searches um, on the computer itself, it will also be able to highlight particular searched emails, not just the emails itself, but related things. So if you were searching for someone's name as part of a document, they might have sent you an email that where that document was sent via an email, and it'll tell you that that's how the document arrived on your computer in the first place, because it'll say this was sent by in the search query, and it's all integrated together. So you're not going to get that with a webmail service.
No. How you can get it, though, is, for example, install the Gmail app. Put the Gmail app
Oh yes, if you put
on
the
your
app on your
phone.
computer, yes.
And then there is no Gmail app for the Mac. So if you want to check Gmail on the Mac and not check it via the web, you need something like Apple Mail or Thunderbird or what have you. But
Mm,
putting the Gmail app on your phone and allowing it to communicate with, in this case, Gmail or Google Workspace account, you will get
yes,
notifications on your watch. You might
yes,
not have
yes,
the
yes,
Siri integration that you are looking for, but you
yeah,
definitely can get the notifications.
that's right. But then your Mac is out of the loop at that point.
True, yes. But if you have the watch on, do you
If you have
need
the
the
watch, yeah, yeah,
notifications on the Mac,
exactly.
right?
Well, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah. There's always a workaround for it, but I think your point is, and it's a very very valid point, and probably the point we're trying to make here is that deep integration of Apple Mail with calendars and contacts and notes and reminders and iOS, especially if you're using the same equivalent apps on
that's it.
iOS,
By default, yeah.
is something that you just are not going to get in any other ecosystem. I can't think of a way to mimic that on Windows. How do you mimic that? If you're a Windows user and you've got an Android or even an iPhone, and you want to mimic that same deep integration that you have with these apps on the Mac, I I don't know how you would do that. The
Well, the
Outlook
only
app,
yeah, exactly.
I
It's
mean,
not easy. The only thing you can do is, and this is also something you should probably also make sure you do with your when you set up your mail accounts and other services accounts on your Mac and your phone, especially and your iPad, for instance, is to make sure that the same service you're using on all your devices, because you can get some very confused state. For instance, if you set your contacts app on your Mac to sync to a service, but then you think that service is also being used for the contacts app on your phone, but it's actually syncing to a different service. You'll add a contact on one machine, and it won't appear on the other, and vice versa, and then
yeah,
you'll be very confused. Where are my contacts? Where
where
have my contacts gone?
I run into that more times than you could imagine. Although I know you can imagine it because you've run into that all the time too. Yeah. Uh, I'm going to mention. I know you have a couple other things you wanted to mention. I want to
Well,
mention one
just
last
just the one,
thing.
just the one thing
Oh,
I thought.
good.
Yeah, yeah,
So two more things, two more reasons
perfect.
to consider Apple Mail on your Mac and by extension your iPhone and iPad. But one last thing I wanted to mention, and I hope it's not the same thing you wanted to mention, but if it is, hey, serendipity. And that would be focus specific email accounts. So when you
Ooh,
set up different focus modes on your Mac, and
oh,
uh, focus modes always is very confusing to me. I don't call them do not disturb modes. I don't know. Focus mode doesn't make sense to my brain for some reason. But when you set up these various focus modes in the sense of how you want to work at any given time, right
mm.
now I am oh, I get it now. I get it. I'm focused on work related stuff. There you
you're
go.
you're focused on
See,
doing a
it
podcast at the
only it
moment.
only took me 20 years. I'm focused on work related tasks, or I'm focused on personal related tasks, or what have you. You can specify which email accounts you want to receive email
Yeah, which
notifications from based on the focus mode you currently have selected, which is fantastic. So you can
mm,
have your personal email come outside of work hours and not get that constant interruption of ding, 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 ding. And your
yeah,
brain, your Pavlovian brain wanting to answer that ding, and you shouldn't because it's a personal message. You
that's it.
shouldn't be interacting with it, and yet you hear that ding and you want to so badly open up that inbox. Well, you can use focus modes on the Mac to say, you know what? Don't
Yeah,
send me any personal emails. Don't alert me to
outside of
any
these
personal
times.
emails within this time frame. Yep, which I think is a
Yeah,
great
yeah.
feature.
Yeah, it's very powerful. There's so many criterias of how you can define a focus mode. You can even go really, really deep into the weeds, not that I have, um, and set them up for so for instance, focus modes on your phone, being able to set a particular focus mode to appear when you have a particular home screen
Mm,
set up,
hmm
uh, and related to both of them. So I know I can't remember there's a guy. Max Sparky. Do you know Max Sparky?
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course.
Excellent.
David Sparks?
Oh
Yep.
well, he is David Sparks indeed. He is the master of focus modes, and he has some excellent resources about how to set them up with workflows and get into the groove with figuring out focus modes and how they can help you. But you can really, really delve into the weeds and get some really interesting behaviors going on with focus modes, and they're all entirely focused on you, for instance. So your focus modes may look or will look entirely different to someone else's focus modes.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
yeah, they're very powerful. I've not delved anywhere near as in depth as especially David Sparks. But yeah, yeah, he's the one. If you want to know about focus modes, um, uh, have a look at David's website and delve into focus modes. They're fabulous,
You
fabulous
know,
resources.
I'm gonna. I have been privileged to have David speak at MacStock, and if you want to know anything about how to be more productive with your Mac,
Yeah,
definitely check out Max Sparky,
that's it. Yeah,
because
yeah,
he
he's a
is
genius.
the genius of productivity, and definitely someone to listen to if that's your goal. You had one more thing you wanted to mention, right?
I do have one more thing. Yes, yes. This thing is linked in with how Apple Intelligence is coming down the road now,
Mm,
and the difference that's starting to make to some of our built-in apps on Mac OS. It's slowly creeping in there, but yeah, there's some really interesting stuff appearing. One of the things that I noticed specifically the other day was mail summaries, which is brilliant. I mean, we all know that we used to get not too long ago the two-line previews for each message to say what the message is supposed to
right.
be about, which is usually the first two lines of the message. Um,
Yeah.
that can sometimes be absolutely useless. So I was sent a
Sometimes.
message. So well, often, absolutely. So yes, I was sent a message which started off, "I hope this email finds you well," um, which is a pet hate of mine. Like, never start off an email with "I hope this email finds you well." So of course the preview is nothing to do with what the message is, and it just starts off, "I hope this email finds you well." That's really handy, isn't it?
Right.
Not. So uh, now that Apple Intelligence has just started to appear very recently. It's only in the last in the last update,
Six
actually, in the
months.
last
Yeah.
two updates. Yeah. So Apple Mail has started to automatically give you summaries of a mail rather than just the first two lines. So this particular mail changed from "I hope this email finds you well" to "Here are the results of the study you took part of,"
Mm,
which is immensely more useful to know what that email is about when that comes in. So I'm quite a fan of Apple Intelligence and how it's doing mail summaries now, because it's doing rather a good job of giving me much better mail summaries than the old way, which is just the first two lines, which can be completely useless. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Apple mail summaries.
can Apple Intelligence tell you how to reply to the line, "I hope this message finds you well"?
I haven't clicked on the suggested reply button, but I think there is one. Not they'd probably be a much kinder than the replies that I would possibly give
Uh,
to such.
And what if it does not find you well? What if the message never
Indeed,
arrives?
sometimes messages don't find me well at all.
Exactly.
So why would anyone write that? It's shocking, isn't it?
Oh my gosh. Anything else you wanted to cover, Darren, before we go on to listener questions?
I think that was pretty much it. That was my last point on my list.
I think that was a pretty good list we went down. Pretty good arguments in favor of using Apple Mail or Thunderbird or any of the other email clients out there instead of webmail, not the least of which is not overloading your browser with tabs. But if you want even more information about Apple Mail and why you should use it, I'm here to say that Apple's own website is a fantastic resource. They have a wonderful guide that not only takes you through what's new in the latest version of Apple Mail, and that always is getting updated. Every time there's a new version of the operating system or every time they add a new feature, this guide is being updated. But it tells you how to switch to mail, adding and removing email accounts, composing and sending messages, checking your email. And by that, that includes things like filtering your email, using the Remind Me feature, VIP senders, which we didn't even talk about that, printing
Oh yes.
emails, deleting emails. It talks about working with attachments, including marking up attachments and sending large attachments, like we talked about. Organizing email in your inboxes. It does talk about their spam and blocking features and ways to reduce junk mail on your Mac. Privacy and security. again, something we didn't touch on, but if it's important to you, there are some amazing features in the Apple ecosystem that help a little protect your identity. And then it wraps up with the ever important customizing your mail app, including the use of tabs and full screen mode and using rules and automating mail tasks if you want to do something like that.
Oh yes, Automator, yeah, and potentially oh, what's the other thing called? The thing that's taken over from Automator.
And then, of course, keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard shortcuts are one of the number one productivity tips out there. If you can memorize just a small handful of keyboard shortcuts for interacting with your Mac and the apps on your Mac, you're going to save yourself so much time and so much effort over mousing. Uh, Things are just
Mousing, I like it.
mousing, mousing. What else do you
We'll,
what else
we'll,
do you
we'll go
call
with
it?
that. We'll go with
What
mousing.
else do you
Mousing is
call
good.
it? Well, when you are not mousing about, if you have a favorite mail app for the Mac, you can drop me a line or leave a comment in the show notes for this episode to let us know why you like it and why others should use it too. Well, we do have a couple listener questions I want to get to here, and then, of course, our essential app. The first question is from Andy. A relatively straightforward question, but he asks, in the Finder on the Mac, there is a recents file. And we mentioned this a couple weeks ago,
Oh
Darren. We
yes,
talked about
recent.
customizing the Finder, right?
The
And
first thing I
there's
turn off.
yeah, one of the first things I turn off too, and I might get to that in just a second. But what Recents does is when you click on that in the Finder sidebar, it shows all the most recent documents that you've interacted with on your Mac. I'm not quite sure why it accumulates so much in there, but I've gone into a Recents folder and seen thousands of items in it, which to me
Oh,
is not
shudder.
terribly useful. But anyway, back to Andy's question. He says there's a recents folder. If I empty that, does that erase those files or just clear it out? Well, that is an excellent question
Excellent question. Brilliant question.
because it did tie into our discussion the other week on tweaking the Finder. And I'm going to describe it as the recents being just kind of a smart way to gather together recently accessed files on your Mac, which we just mentioned a moment ago. Anything that you do with those files is going to directly affect the file itself. So, yes, if you clear out the recents folder, you are effectively tossing all those files into the Mac's recycle bin. So it is definitely not something you want to do unless you really do intend to erase those files. Um, we've talked about the recycle bin on the show many moons ago, and I think one of the important ways to interact, one of the important ways to treat the recycle bin is even if it's not permanent, think of it as a permanent deletion. Uh, you might have your Mac set up to automatically empty it, or you might have it set up like mine where you have to manually empty it. But
Yeah.
you should not put stuff in the recycle bin with the intention of filing it away for later or possibly wanting to pull it out for later. And I do know folks who do that, and I try to dissuade them from doing that
Oh
because
dear. Yes.
you should consider what gets put in the recycle bin something you no longer want and something you absolutely want removed from your Mac. Because if you do have that option turned on to automatically empty it, that file is going to be gone. So either hope you have a backup or
That's it. Yeah.
start going into
Yeah.
recovery mode. But always treat the recycle bin as these are things I definitely do not want. But anyway, yes, Andy, you are effectively tossing all those files into the Max recycle bin. Now, if you no longer want to see recents in the sidebar, it's very easy to turn off. With any Finder window open, go to the Max menu bar at the top of your screen, and then click the Finder menu. It says Finder, and then go down to Settings. And in the Settings window that opens, what you want to do is click Sidebar, and then uncheck recents. And then while you're in there, you can follow our advice from a couple weeks back and check or uncheck any other items that you would like to show or hide in the
Yeah.
sidebar. So,
You might also want to click on the option that goes with displaying the recents in the sidebar, which is to what to automatically display when you open a Finder window in the first place. So sometimes that is
yes.
defaulted to recents. So you may want to default that to your home folder or something else more useful than the recents folder.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. That's an excellent add on to that because I don't set mine to open with recents.
Nor
I
do
set
I.
mine to open with my home folder. I know you set it to open with documents or something like that.
No, I set mine to open the Macintosh HD top level. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Yeah. And I set mine to open with my home folder because more often than not, that's where I want to be
that's
when
where
I
you want to
open a
be to
new.
start off with. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But that's a great tip because, and that may be how Andy stumbled across it. It may be that he
Yeah,
left it
exactly.
at the
Is
default
that the
and
default?
is like,
I think
well,
that might be the default to open with recents. I think
what is
it
all
might be.
this? Can I delete it? No.
No, unfortunately,
So
it doesn't behave like a smart folder would. So yes,
that's a good point. Yeah, a smart folder is something entirely different. But
yeah, because
if you
that's
do set up a
linked.
smart
Yeah,
folder, you are also still directly interacting with those files. So
be careful.
be careful. Yeah. The next question is from a new listener and friend of the show, Alex. He had a question he sent to you, Darren, about incompatible system extensions, which, as you said, can confuse many a user. You want to tell us about Alex's question and how you replied
Yeah,
to him?
sure. Yeah, this came through from Alex. Alex from Oz. So shout out to Alex,
Yeah.
new listener. He is well had a pop up on his computer that I'd not seen myself for a while. I did know of it, but it's good because it highlighted how nice Mac OS is to really. Because one of the
Yeah.
things that it specifically said is it pops up a message saying for legacy system extensions,
Right.
specifically saying that existing software on your system loaded with a system extension signed by HP, there's a
Mm-hmm.
clue there, which will be compatible with, or incompatible, I should say, with a future version of macOS. Please contact the developer for support. So that's a general pop-up message just to pre-warn you that
Mm-hmm.
something you have on your system is likely to be, I say, air quotes, likely to be incompatible with new versions of macOS as it comes down the road because, well, they've gone out of support for quite a long time. So it's just sort of like a warning. So you can, I think, as you suggested as well earlier on, you can ignore those and just have that at the back of your head that say, oh, that's why the system extension doesn't work anymore. Um, but there are other operating systems, shall we say, possibly that begin with the word or begin with the letter W, um, that don't do this at all, and all they do is uh, things just stop working. You don't know why, but they don't give you a message to say, "Oh, this is likely to cause you a problem in the next operating system release." It just doesn't bother and doesn't bother to tell you. And the only reason you know things there's something wrong is when it stops working.
When you
So
get
at
that blue
least Mac
screen.
OS is
Yeah.
that. Well, if it gets that bad, yeah, exactly. So at this point, at least Mac OS is telling you that it's something installed on your system is unlikely to work in the next OS version. And one of the nice things it does is squirrel that away. So when the OS does upgrade, it's not in a runnable position. It's not trying to run something that can bring the system down. So again, it's a nicety from macOS that's pre-warning you of an issue. And there's various roads to go down when you get a message like this, but it's just a good thing to highlight that macOS just does warn you about legacy system extensions. And I think it's a really good call from Alex to let us know that that appeared on his computer and to it'll be a good idea to let everyone else know what these are.
And I get these after nearly every major upgrade on my Mac. And part of it is something that we've talked about here on the show. I have a tendency to just continually upgrade my Macs. And when I get a new Mac, I migrate. I migrate from the old Mac to the new Mac. So I'm really just carrying some of this old
Old
legacy
craft.
cruft. I, Jinx, this old legacy cruft forward from Mac to Mac to Mac to Mac. I mean, it's what I do, and I accept the fact that this is going to happen. So the very first question I had for you when you shared this question with me, Darren, was how old is his Mac? Has he
Hmm.
migrated from a previous Mac? And you thought that perhaps this was a second or third generation Mac, and
Yeah,
perhaps
yeah, yeah.
per, you know we,
Uh,
we don't
Alex did
know.
share. Uh, Alex did share with me that he did have an unfortunate event with some liquid, uh,
Oh dear.
which, which did require a replacement machine. But I believe that the guys that worked on that for him um, did a time machine migration from his current Mac to another one. So yeah, I think this is historical and gone through
Yeah.
some of the first Macs he had, and it's possibly on a third machine by now. The printer itself is 9 years old, he said.
Which
So
shouldn't be a problem.
shouldn't be, but
Yeah.
I do have some previous unfortunate incidents with specifically with HP drivers, whereby it could turn into one of those very interesting issues of trying to get an old printer to be fully supported and so on, and possibly difficulties in getting replacement drivers. So yeah, we came up with a solution, and well, Alex actually suggested, because he does have another printer which is rather lovely. He has a brother printer which is new,
Mhm.
and one of the advantages of that printer is it uses AirPrint, and that's possibly something.
To HP and Canon and Brother, they all also offer standalone drivers. If you just want the bare drivers and nothing else,
Mm, mm,
and you're not getting the full functionality from the printer by strictly communicating with it with AirPrint, which all HP printers do, all Brother printers do. My experience with Canon's a little hit or miss when it comes to AirPrint support, but HP and Brother, they all for years all support AirPrint. But if you're not getting all the functionality you want, they both offer just the drivers. You don't have to download the full installation package. So
yes,
there
yes.
are ways around it. It's one of those things that look, printer situations, printer problems are they're
The
up
sign of the
here.
devil. They're
They're
terrible.
sign of they are the number one issue when someone calls a person who does technical support and says, "I have a question about my printer."
My printer, yeah, you run screaming the other way.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's like, can I hang up on this person and they won't know it? Uh,
Oh no, no, you got to
it's
try and
no,
help them.
no, no. You got to spend the next hour and a half trying to solve their printer problem because it's just, and it's
Yeah.
worse if it's Windows.
Oh,
Um,
it's
it,
worse if it's an old printer as well. So yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
at least on
Trying to
the
get those legacy cups printer drivers to talk to really old printers, yeah, it can be
oh,
difficult.
that is a good conversation to have in the future. We won't have it now, but talking about
Or cups is
cup
a
support
subject in itself.
on the
Absolutely.
Mac and how to manage your printer via the Cups web interface is kind of an interesting conversation we should have at some point in the future. But real quick, I think, what I would say to Alex, and this does open a bit of a can of worms, but I think the best, if you really want to get rid of these legacy extensions, is to uninstall the printer, hunt down those legacy extensions, remove them from your Mac, all of them, boom. That
Yeah.
will
It's the
temporarily,
hunt that can be tricky though, hunting these
exactly,
things down. Yeah.
exactly, hunting them down. The newer versions of macOS do make it easier. When
Yeah.
it indicates there's a legacy system extension, you can click and it'll bounce you over and show you what that extension is. And very often, show you where it is on your Mac as well, so that you can remove it. But get all that stuff out of there, and then do what Darren suggested and reinstall the printer via settings. And if that doesn't work, if using just the standard AirPrint drivers from the Mac doesn't work to give you all the functionality you expect, then grab the official tools from the Mac App Store. If you search for HP Smart or Canon drivers on the Mac App Store, you're going to get all kinds of junk. Make sure you're getting the official drivers.
Yes, be
And I
careful
think
what you download
people
before.
run into Apple does not do a good job of floating accurate search results to the top in the Mac App Store. They just do not. But make sure you get the actual manufacturer tools, and then reinstall it and see if that takes care of it. But that's about it. I wouldn't worry too much about them, Alex.
No,
I
not
would just kind
nothing
of
drastic to worry about, but it's good that
leave them
it
alone.
highlights the issue,
Yeah,
or a potential issue,
yeah.
rather than leaving you completely clueless when something may not or may stop working in the future.
Or do what Alex did: buy a new printer.
Buy a new printer. Exactly.
Every episode, Darren, we try to wrap things up with an essential app. And I kind of strong armed you into coming up with an essential app this episode. And
Yeah, I struggled.
you struggled a little bit, but I think you came up with something pretty good. What is your essential app pick this episode, Darren?
Right, yeah, this is one of the apps that I have been using for a very long time, but completely forgot that I was using it, because it's kind of just sits there hidden in the background doing its job, and once you install it, you forget that it exists, which is good in a way because it's doing
Perfect.
its job.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this particular app is a Safari extension. So Safari extensions are available in the Mac App Store. So for instance, when you're in Safari and you go to settings and extensions and you choose, show me a list of extensions to search for, it'll switch over into the Mac App Store and show the available extensions for Safari in there. So it's like an app download, but this is an app that works in conjunction with Safari. So the app is called Ghostery, and it is sort of like a, no, sort of like an ad blocker, but not precisely just for ad blocking. It's also for security. It will filter out some of the ads and undesirable things you wouldn't really want to see on websites anyway, and
Mm,
it'll slim down your website, which is quite nice in a way, because just having that installed, it filters out things that, and it updates itself quite frequently, very, very frequently actually, with undesirable things, for instance. So stuff that would, or it thinks is a good idea to pre-filter out. So rather than downloading the whole website and then getting rid of bits that it doesn't want, it does the clever part of not downloading them in the first place. So it only downloads the parts of the website that you actually want to use and see, rather than the
interesting.
useless stuff you don't want to interact with. So it actually makes your web browsing faster, which is interesting as well. So not only does it protect you against various things, stops ads and trackers, and helps keep your system nice and clean for web browsing, but it actually speeds up your web browsing sessions in the first place. So it's a double whammy there. So yeah, this is Ghostery, a Safari plugin for, oh, sorry, it's not a plugin anymore. They're called extensions now, aren't they? So Safari extension for ad blocking and getting rid of undesirable things from coming down as you cruise around the web. And it produces a very nice little report. There's a very cute looking blue ghost that appears on your Safari menu
Love it.
bar there. And when you click on that, you get a nice report to say what it has blocked and why it's blocked it. So it's quite nice to track, and very interesting actually to have a look at the websites you frequent to see the sorts of things it's blocking and getting rid of. So yeah, I think that's a really good piece of software that I forgot that I was using.
And I should probably, I tend to, I think I mentioned Ghostery. I tend to kind of merge words together as I say them. We're not saying ghost story. We're saying ghostery. So it's
Yes.
Ghostery. And I think one of the more interesting things about this in terms of providing this much functionality for safely and more quickly browsing the web is that it's donationware. There's
Yes.
no cost to download and install it in your browser. It immediately
That's it.
prompted me to install the extension in Firefox. There's an extension for Safari
Hmm.
and probably Chrome and Edge as well. But
Yeah. And it's cross-platform as well. It's everywhere. Yeah.
if you like it, they just ask for a one time donation as small as $5.
Yeah.
And they just phrase it as once or any time you appreciate Ghostery. So if you use it for a while and it's doing a good job for you and it allows you to get to the websites you want to get to, but to read them in a way that is in a non-intrusive way, where you're not worried about
Mm.
the ads and all that. Uh,
Yeah.
Heck, sending $5 their way is probably the least you could do. And then if you also want to support them in a different way, they have an online shop where you can purchase a sweatshirt or a t-shirt with that cute little ghost on it. So, heck,
That's
why
it.
why not do that instead? So that's pretty cool. So, Ghostery, yeah, that you said is available in the Mac App Store.
It is. Yeah. So when you go to Safari and you click on Safari extensions, it will wander over to the Mac App Store. Will automatically load, and if you search for it there, it will be in the list. If you wander down, there is a list. But if you did want to search for it directly, you can just search for it directly in the App Store.
Very cool. And of course, we'll also put a link to ghostery.com in
Yes, so you can
this
get some more
episode's
information about it. Yeah.
show notes. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, you can see all the different things that it does for you. Tracker and ad blocker, private search, who tracks me, and privacy digest. I guess that's where you can just kind of learn a little bit more about some of the different types of online tracking that are going on out
Yeah.
there on
Yeah.
the big bad internet. But ghostery.com, very cool. Very cool. See, that wasn't so bad, Darren. You came up with a great suggestion this week.
Excellent. I did have to, I must admit, I did have to search through my applications folder to find it. I thought, oh, yes, I used that, and I've forgotten I'd used it.
See, that's the best kind of app. The apps that run in the background, but
Yeah.
the and that's what makes it essential. It runs in the background. It performs a valuable service, but it doesn't get in your way.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't get in the way, but not only that, it speeds up your browsing session rather than slows it down. So, I mean, do you remember back in the day when you would see a Windows 7 machine and you'd see several hundred bars that have been added as
Yeah,
extensions to the browser, and there
yeah.
was only that much space at the bottom to actually show the website, and the rest of it was just extensions. And the browser session was so badly bogged down that it just wouldn't work anymore.
It
You spent the whole day uninstalling things.
it is insane. But with that said, that is going to do it for this episode of For Mac Guys Only. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Remember, we do love to get your letters, so if you have any comments about the show, a tip to share, a software or hardware problem with your Mac, or maybe there's a mail app that you like to use and you want to share it with everyone here on the show, well, you can leave those comments in this week's show notes found at formatguysonly.com, or you can drop me a line, mike at formatguysonly.com. And do be sure to subscribe to the show's YouTube channel at youtube.com/FMEOTV and click that little notification bell so you can find out when we're going live. You can join the chat room and catch all the behind the scenes stuff that doesn't make the final cut of the show. And thanks to Martine and Brett for joining us in the chat room today. Brett is the one who pointed out that awesome new mail categories feature in Mail for iOS. Darren, what is the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
Yes. Best way to get hold of me is to email me at darren@formaceyersonly.com.
Exactly. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. And thanks to Darren for joining me this episode. Stay subscribed, and we'll talk to you next time.